There's a trend in a certain section of technology, particularly gaming, that many people are concerned about. On one side, stuff like SSDs have gotten delightfully cheaper in the last couple of years, and CPUs are improving in what they can offer at a certain price. On the other hand, we have GPUs. While the mid-range stuff that I think most people will be happy with has kept a certain reasonable line, the more entry-level stuff can disappoint, and the flagship GPUs everyone likes to fight about, even though few can afford them, have evolved beyond the realm of logic. Increasing in price with each generation in rates much faster than inflation. This is why people were so wowed when the next-gen NVIDIA GPUs, while they still kept the overall pricing structure of the inflated current gen, they at least had improvements in performance that justified it without increasing prices. This trend is perhaps better exemplified by what is currently happening with consoles, and is likely the result of this same problem. We seem to be reaching a crossroads for graphical technology, where generational improvements in capacity require disproportionate rises in expenses. Consoles seem to go through a process like this somewhat regularly, or at least once before. Competition starts rising the boundaries of what can be done, eventually those technical leaps lead to an increase in price that gets it beyond the reach of most people.
$599 US.
A more limited, but cheaper, competitor takes advantage of that to position themselves as an alternative, and then Nintendo just sells millions of systems, ignoring everyone else and doing something weird. The state of technology seems to have conspired for the same thing to occur again. Nintendo is off making weird but this time both Sony and Microsoft seem to be victims of the increased cost of technology, with both flagship consoles are coming at $499, with PlayStation trying to cut part of that in its digital-only edition at $399, which is a price they achieve by selling it at a loss and recovering using the higher margins of downloadable games, and from locking people away from buying cheap used games. Also, new PlayStation games are nearly $100 in Europe? I'm sorry, what? But that is not what we're here for. It seems Microsoft is allowed to repeat the magic of 2011 by offering a cheap way to get into the next generation in the form of the Xbox Series S, which took the internet by storm due to its low price. The Xbox Series S is basically mostly the same as the big expensive Series X, but with less RAM, a smaller GPU and no disk drive, meaning that it's digital games only. And honestly, it does seem like a very impressive deal for those of us who really do not see much gain in 4K. And if I didn't already have Game Pass for PC, that is going to have all the games that I'm interested in that are also coming to Xbox, I will probably deeply consider getting one of these. So how much of a deal is it? How much does it potentially change the game right now? And how is the future going to look now for the low-end spectrum of PC gaming? To get started on this, I decided to call up someone I trust in the world of budget PC building for a little help.
Hey guys, my name is Ozzy from OzTalksHW, and I teach you guys how to save money when building computers. Although this is true, consoles have been a big part of my childhood, and so I got super excited when I saw the new Series S was only $300. The PC gamer in me wanted to know if I could build a computer for that price that would rival the Series S. If we translate the Xbox Series S's specs to a standard gaming computer, it would have a Ryzen 7 3700X locked at 3.6 GHz, a 512GB NVMe SSD, 12 to 16 gigs of system memory, and an RX 5500 XT. The price of the CPU alone is around $300, so where does that leave us? Well, not very far. I built two different computers, one new one for about $300 and then a used one for just under $300. Although the video cards are comparable to the Series S's GPU, the CPU and the system memory leave a lot to be desired. Regardless, the systems did better than expected but still could not match the performance of an emulated Xbox Series S. Currently, the Series S has great value and no computer build can match it. But what if I told you that that's by design? Consoles are meant to last at least 5 years, so Sony and Microsoft both invest in high-end hardware for their next generation consoles. But as time goes on, this next generation hardware becomes more affordable and more accessible to PC users. So if we redo this video again, maybe 2 years from now, the landscape would look a lot different. Depending on the Series S's MSRP in your country, it could offer wonderful gaming value. Now, there are other factors that you have to consider, which I talk about more on my channel, so if you guys are interested, click the link in Alex's video description and you can go watch my video. Until then, enjoy the rest of the video, and thank you again, Alex, for having me.
Thank you, OC. Your experiment has made me pretty curious. Is that value ratio kept in countries around the world? To those unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, the United States is in a bit of a privileged position regarding electronics, with both new and used parts being ridiculously cheap compared to the rest of the world, which is why every time I go to a convention in the US, I leave with like 2 GPUs, 2 laptops and a VR headset. I have screamed plenty in the past about how abnormally high the prices of components are around the world, particularly used gaming stuff, and how the entry-level parts like Athlons, Pentiums and GT GPUs tend to be less affected. Given that relationship, I was super curious about how the Xbox Series S aggressive pricing will scale around the world. Lucky for us, a rare opportunity emerged. Twitter accounts for local branches of Xbox also publish local pricing for many territories. Outliers here are Brazil, which generated some controversy by not announcing the price and apparently got told it will happen later, and Argentina, which, given the inflation rate, the price is likely going to be different in a couple of months anyway. The first thing to consider, prices in the US do not include tax like they usually do in the EU. And then every other country has a different policy, and so some of them will include tax and some will not. So if you bought an Xbox in, I don't know, New York, the price will be closer to $320 than $299. So with that in mind, here are some of the good examples of prices around the world in order of absurdity. Saudi Arabia, $364. Hungary, $376. Israel, $391. Mexico, $399 for a Series S. Colombia, we're finally over $400 for $405. Chile, $415. South Africa, $419. And India with $489. Jesus, that is quite the jump. Congratulations on having the higher price on the lower average income. Man, technology and the economy. Gotta love it, gotta hate it sometimes. So something I immediately wanted to know, will these prices still be a great deal in Alto's local economies? I tried recreating something similar to Ozzy's build, a cheap but good 30 FPS CPU like a Pentium or an Athlon, 8 gigs of RAM and a powerful enough GPU, which usually takes the shape of a GTX 1650 or an RX 570 if available. An interesting observation from this experiment is that the RX 570 and RX 580 are often used as examples of why you should not get a 1650, but AMD availability and supply in places like South America is not amazing, which is something rarely considered. Interestingly enough, in all the countries I experimented with, the Xbox scaled in price appropriately well and ended up being a still much better deal on paper, very extremely in some cases. And if you try to go for older generation used components, that market is even more screwed in some of these countries, so yeah, I'm still pretty impressed by the Xbox. Some interesting observations are worth doing here. I have been warned many times that these official prices are more like recommended pricing, and that local stores are likely going to increase them in a lot of these places, because that tends to happen at least in South America, so the comparison might close up a bit. But still, as OC mentioned, for a while this gap is not going to close until entry-level hardware catches up. Considering that in the CPU land, stuff like Athlons are still stuck in Zen 1, and in GPU land, we really did not get a real entry-level option from AMD, and the closest we got from Nvidia was the GTX 1650, which was not as spectacular. Kinda like this whole generation. So now we turn to the future. What could possibly change this? While a lot of people with surprisingly deep pockets are raving about the new 30 series CPU from Nvidia, I am more interested in how this is going to look when it comes to something more affordable. Will we see the same dramatic increase in gaming performance at the same price? Same thing from AMD. I have done some good stuff with the Ryzen 3 3200G, but I really hope for Zen 2 APUs with better integrated graphics soon. In the meantime, the Xbox Series S seems that it will be a point of reference for this category for a long time. I do wonder how it will do as a digital-only console though. Xbox Digital Store does offer some level of regional pricing, which I'm very happy about, but having one storefront versus several is always a risk when you have to bargain hunt for games. The other side of the coin is Game Pass, which is delightfully available in a large variety of countries and offers games as a subscription, so I guess it could work. I'm excited to find out. Before we close, quick mention of Venezuela because someone sent me this screenshot. The new Xbox is not officially sold in Venezuela, but some retailers are already putting up prices in dollars and some things just never change. Jeesh, no wonder I became a PC person.